Do we have a minyan?
We do.
Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat Shabbat, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat Shabbat, Shabbat shalom. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la 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 la. Page 142. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Page 142. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, Akadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, Akadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, Akadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nile Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, Akadosh Baruch Hu. Seichem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, Akadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbi Aronson,
Rabbi Cantor-Wissett.
I have been here for now, this is my 23rd year here, and this is the smallest crowd ever that I have ever experienced at Temple Judea.
The most inspirational crowd, though.
So I want to give, so you made a shout out to people that they next year are going to be written in the book. So,
100%.
You know, like this is a group that is written in the book. So
Absolutely. Here's my one concession to the evening. What kind of witch lives at the beach? Which?
Oh,
Which?
no.
Which, like on a broomstick. Which kind of witch?
Come on, guys.
A sandwich. Thank you.
He is literally here all week.
Yeah. That's it. That's all I got. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos also.
Look, if you had to line up all of the 4 major professional sports next to each other, and you had to say, what is the most Jewish professional sport? Without a doubt. I mean,
Amen.
yeah, there's no question. And this is from a guy who really is very split. But yeah, but baseball is by far the, the people who are not with us are engaged in their own form of sacred space and holiness. And this is a judgment-free zone.
That's
exactly.
Or handing out candy.
Handing out candy, exactly. But at any rate, let's do some singing. Let's do some praying. We're going to do a little bit of learning. You're going to be inspired. Let's turn to page 138 for Lechado D.
We're going to actually sing 2 new versions of Lechado D tonight. You may have heard these before because they've been around the block, but they haven't really been done at Temple Judea. So this is, you'll let me know what you like, and we'll keep doing the ones you like. La la Shabbat nekabela, likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor haberacha, meirosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela, shamor v'zachor. Let me try that again. Last verse, verse 9. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha uv'tzola, tochem u'nei am segula, boi chala, lecha dodi, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela.
Let's take a moment to just enjoy the fact that we're all together. So you might want to, we're very few of us here tonight. The Hardy, though, we are the remnant, the remnant of the Jewish people right here. So say hello, wish each other Shabbat Shalom. And Art and Marlon, welcome. Well, along the lines of, this is, the most intimate crowd in your tenure here at Temple Judaica.
It is, it really is.
It's also the first time I've ever experienced, we don't have any
Youngins.
people who we are defined as kids. So anybody now who wants to come up and join us for the candle lighting,
if you'd
you
all
can
like to come up
you
and
just
join
come
us for
up
the
and
candle lighting
we'll
so we
all
can all
stand
gather
here.
around
You
the
don't have to.
candles.
There's no requirement. We're very flexible. But if you'd like to join us, come up and join
That's
us.
kind of nice. Ya la 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 la,
Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la,
ya la 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 la,
ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, b'mitzvotav. V'tzivanu lehadlik ner, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner, shel Shabbat. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la,
146, page 146. Please rise. $152.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Shema Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha vehayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha veshinantam levanecha vedibarta bam beshivtecha beveitecha uvlechtecha vaderech ושוך בך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם כראשים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Let's continue on page 158. 158, Song of Redemption, Micha Mocha. in just a few seconds, we're going to sing Vishamru. And there's an old saying about Vishamru, and it kind of encapsulates what it means. As much as Shabbat has kept the people of Israel, so has the people of Israel kept Shabbat, and vice versa. This really speaks to the reciprocal relationship between not only Shabbat and the people of Israel, but God and the people of Israel. And in that respect, the great rabbis of our tradition have made an analogy between God and a parent. Not that difficult, it's not that out of the box, it's not that unusual, it makes complete sense. The reason it's particularly relevant to this moment is because of our portion, Lech Lecha, which really delves into, not only in the actual text of the Torah, but in the Midrash, the relationship between Abraham and his father. And I often think when I study Torah and I read about God and God's relationship with the people of Israel, I often think about what it means to be a parent. And typically when I'm reading about God, it's in the context of God's disappointment with the people of Israel. We read about that so often in the Torah, beginning almost from the Garden of Eden, of course, with the idea that right away there's a problem that God needs to get involved with. And I think about what it means for a parent to be disappointed in a child and what it means for a child to be disappointed in a parent. Because, as I'm going to talk about during my Dvar Torah, this relationship is the primary relationship in our lives for our entire life. That is to say, the relationship between a parent and a child. It obviously is the first relationship of any human being's life. And it is the relationship, for better or worse, usually some combination. This relationship follows a person throughout their entire life. And as you know, if you're a parent, you are never not a parent, no matter what. You are never not a parent. You could be 120 and your child could be 100. You are never not a parent. You're never not thinking about your child. You're never not worrying about your child. You're never not wondering where your child is or think. And if you're a child, as much as you might try and deny it, you're never really escaping the influence of your parent. And the question about when it's necessary to pull away and make a choice that's different from what your parent recommends, I'm going to talk about that when we come to the Dvar Torah. But as we sing Vishamru, and we think about the reciprocal relationship between God and the people of Israel and the keeping of Shabbat, and the times maybe when we haven't kept Shabbat to the way God might like, let's think about the complexity of those reciprocal relationships between parent and child and what it means for our lives. Page 162.
Veshamru v'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Veshamru v'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beini uvein bnei Yisrael oti leolam, oti leolam, oti leolam. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheishet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Vayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Page 164, please rise.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham ve'Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chasdei Avot ve'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechaye Meitim Atah Rav Lehoshia, Mashiva Ruach Umorid Hagashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye Meitim Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofeh Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar michamocha bal geburot umidom elach melech meimit umechaye umatzmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman ata le'achayot meitim. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayei hametim. So it's really on this day of the American calendar that the stores start to switch over toward Thanksgiving. And the consumerism is out there and the things are out there to buy, but Thanksgiving is an integral part of what we do, what we say, especially on Shabbat, when we really don't offer up any other prayers except for peace and gratitude. And so on page 176, we'll find a setting of Modim Anachnu Lach. We are grateful for so very many things, even when the world has things that force us not to be grateful for them. It's our task to find all the things that we find truly miraculous and special. Modim anachnu lach, modim Atahu Adonai Eloheinu leolam va'ed. Tzur chayenu magen yishenu Atahu ledor vador. Tzur chayenu magen yishenu Atahu ledor vador. Modim anachnu lach, modim anachnu lach, shatahu Adonai Eloheinu leolam va'ed. We thank you for our lives that are in your hand. We thank you for our souls that are in your care. We thank you for your miracles which happen every day. For all of these we give thanks. Modim anachnu lach, modim anachnu lach, shatahu Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imotenu leolam va'ed, leolam va'ed, leolam va'ed.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Let's focus our thoughts for the moment on those people we know, those people we love, those people in our circle, various circles we inhabit, that may be in need of a blessing of healing and who may benefit from knowing that there's a group of people, all of us, who have gathered here to celebrate Shabbat and to gather together in the spirit of the Jewish tradition, and we are sending healing energy to those in need, whether they're in need of physical healing or emotional healing or spiritual healing. People would benefit from knowing that we're thinking of them and holding them close at this moment. So if you have someone that you'd like us to include in our blessing for healing, I invite you to mention their name aloud at this time. We think also of Levi ben Yosef Yehoshua Vamaya, Leah Hoffman, Emma Minsky, Lawrence Blum, Declan Haft, Jody Yusum, Yaakov Leib ben Nachum Avram, Fran Rosen, Matt Hirsch, Shesha Basha, Marilyn Seidelman, Judy Kolick. We're glad to see you here, Judy. I hope you're doing okay. Judith Benson, Ruvain Ben Moisha, Nikki Axelrod, Marissa Axelrod, Dina Hasida, Chazan Yaakov Ben Sion Ben Tova, Barbara Hain, Ellen Crane, Yael Green, Valerie Alexandrovich, Frayne Rosenfield, Rachel Cohen, Brendy Rosenblum, Lynn Krieger, Chazan Aliza Batya, Sam Glick, Arash Hasid, Marilyn Hursty, Barbara Schwartz, Sasan Rejwan, Edward Ellis Handler, Eileen Lieberman, John Marzak, Renee Klug, Daniel Marletti, Jordan Berwick, Lauren Walchick, Shmuel Ben Hinda, Shlomo Ben Moshe Vifani, Sandra Granite, Lorraine Friedman, Doris Graham, Jack Schreier, Dubashava Bat Zlata Yankel, Moses Lerman, Harvey Pickus, Michael David Saltzman. The Misha Barak is on page 371.
Misha Barak Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Let us link our hearts to those of our brothers and sisters living in the land of Israel and around the world whose hearts are also linked to Israel as we read together at the bottom of page 517.
Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'Goalo. Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'Goalo. Try that with me. Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'Goalo. Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'Goalo.
Together, O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen.
Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'Goalo. Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'Goalo.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We'll do things a little more informally at the moment. We're a strong group, an intimate group. So we find ourselves in Parshat Lech Lecha. It is really the beginning of the narrative of Abraham. And rabbis are heavily influenced in this particular narrative by text that actually isn't in the Torah. We're influenced by the idea that Abraham's father was an idol worshiper, an idol maker, and that Abraham, while working in his idol-making store, through an interesting midrash, comes to smash all the idols while his father is away from the store. And when the father returns, Abraham, having placed the hammer into the hand of one of the largest remaining idols, Terach says to Abraham, "What happened when I was gone? What happened?" And Abraham says, "Well, this guy over here did it." And the father says, "What do you mean? He's a block of wood. He couldn't possibly have done that." And Abraham says, "Yeah, that's my point." And I'm paraphrasing, of course. Abraham says, "Yeah, that's my point entirely. What are you doing with these idols, with these blocks of wood that you're selling to people?" Doesn't say this under false pretenses, but they're obviously not gods. This is the narrative that the rabbis tell in the Midrash, which is an important narrative because the rabbis want us to understand something about Abraham that isn't explicitly in the text of the Torah itself. And it leads us to conclude that Abraham, I think rightly, was a bit of a rebel, even more than a bit of a rebel. And Abraham becomes known in our tradition as the first monotheist, the first person who believed in one God, and it's Abraham's connection to God, the God that ultimately occupies the rest of the Torah and really is connected to the Jewish people. This is the God of history, the God that helps Jews, that will redeem Jews, that takes Jews out of Egypt. Abraham is the first person, according to the Jewish tradition, that really grabs onto this idea, makes it his, and uses it to create the nation that he ultimately becomes. That's not exactly what the Torah text tells us. And in fact, if you read the Torah text, you wouldn't necessarily get the idea that Abraham rejects his father at all. In the text of the Torah, before the exact part of the narrative I was just referring to, we learn that actually Abraham leaves Ur of the Chaldees with his father, with their entire retinue, ostensibly to go to Canaan. But Terach decides to stop in Haran, and it's only Abraham that ultimately goes off in the idea that he is going to make his way into the promised land. When you combine these narratives, I think you have some great insight into the nature of the relationship between children and their parents. Very few children really break completely with their parents, even if they believe in their heart they're breaking with their parents. Many cases, they're just breaking with an idea they had of their parents, or the fact that they broke with their parents is still an animating idea in their entire life. But most of us are trying to do something in our lives that is what Abraham did. Because there's another part of our tradition that underscores the idea that Abraham, his father, wasn't able to complete the journey. His father only had it within his worldview to go so far. And if you think about the life of at least the Jewish people, that is not an unusual idea. Think about somebody, somewhere in your background, you had a grandmother, grandfather, great-grandmother, great-grandfather, so pick one person who came over to this country, and in most cases, they weren't able to become the neurosurgeon. They weren't able to become the partner in a law firm. They were able to become a shopkeeper. They weren't able to send their kids to a private school. They were able to send their kids to public school, properly equipped. And then their children ultimately grow up to maybe complete the journey that their parents, grandparents, or whomever ultimately hoped in their heart they would be able to do, which is to lead a better life than I was able to lead. Isn't that really, when you have a child, you want that child to lead a better life than the life you were able to do? In our day and age, that's not so easy. And our children, by which I mean children of people my age, are going to have a tough time having a better life than they had as kids for a whole bunch of complicated reasons. Life's more difficult, life's more complex. The choices are different. The way the world works is different than it was when I was growing up. But that's what we all want for our kids. We want our kids to grow up and have a life that is better than the life I gave to my kids. Now, there are also other issues when we talk about the relationship between parents and children, which is that maybe you come to a point in your life, and I remember this so vividly in my own life, when you get all this advice from your parents up through a certain age. And of course, when you're 5, you basically got to do what they say, and you got to take their advice. But there comes a time when you consciously realize, I know my dad or my mother, they're giving me advice because they really believe it's in my best interest, but I can't take that advice. That's a very, very painful thing. And I think Abraham kind of went through that, and I think that's what the narrative of Abraham really tries to tell us, is what happens when you realize your parents, they love you, and they're so well-intentioned, and they give you advice. In my case, the advice of my mother and father was go to business school. And I was like, I hate business school. I can't imagine going to business school. And they said, just go take an accounting course. Please, just take an accounting course. And I'm thinking to myself, oy vey. But I had the good fortune that my parents were footing the bill. So I enrolled in an accounting course in the University of Michigan. And boy, I hated every single second of that course. And I was not going to be an accountant. I was not going to get an MBA. Nothing, obviously, could possibly be further from the truth. And there's nothing wrong with being an accountant. Looking back, maybe I should have been an accountant. But it clearly was not the choice for me. So I had to pick up the phone and say to my mother, and mostly say to my father, I'm not going to go to business school, Dad. I'm sorry. I know that's what you want for me, but it's not what I want for myself. And at that time, and then, well, what do you want for yourself? Well, I'm going to probably go to rabbinic school. What? You're going to go to rabbinic school? Dead silence. Dead silence. But of course, I was blessed. They were totally fine and wonderfully supportive of it. But that's a hard moment. Maybe harder for me than it was for them. But what happens when you come to that point where you have to say to yourself, I can't take the advice of the people who have the most invested in me of anybody in the entire world. These are difficult decisions. And we as Jewish people often face this decision. People who were Orthodox, it wasn't orthodoxy so to speak, but traditional, kept kosher and all these things, who got on a boat at the very beginning of this country and came over here, found they couldn't keep Shabbat, and they knew they had to make a difficult choice. They knew that after generations of spending Shabbat in a certain way in Minsk or Pinsk, that they were going to have to spend a different way because this was a different place. And that's a hard decision to make too. And knowing that the decision of your parents, your ancestors, is not your decision, that you have a different road to hoe. And you may not, and when you make that decision, by the way, you don't know that it's going to turn out okay. So when I decided to go to rabbinic school, I was a little kid. What did I know? Did I know it was going to turn out? I hoped it was going to, you imagine you're going to be something, but who knows if you're really going to be that something. And so if you get on a boat, even more so when you go to a country that, who knows how that's going to work out for you. All these decisions, I think, are contemplated by the relationship, fraught as it is, between Abraham and Terach. Abraham's got to go his own way. And it's not the way of his father. And the Midrash, by the way, doesn't really suggest that Terach was this evil guy who was this idol worshiper and, out to really poke a stick in the eye of the one true God. We don't necessarily get that idea. But what we get instead is he's trying to earn a living. He's a guy. He's not really giving it that much thought. He's not really, he's not sitting around thinking about what it means to be God. Who is God? He's not thinking about all of these highfalutin, so to speak, issues. He's a guy trying to earn a living. And Abraham realizes that his future, his path, is something different. Now, Abraham had, in his good fortune and good luck, of course, somebody whispering in his ear, telling him what to do. That's God. So I didn't have God. Most of us don't have God whispering in our ear, telling us that your choice has to be this and needs to go a certain way. But these difficult decisions, these relationships we have, really call upon us. There's very few things more courageous in the world, I think, than having to make a choice that your father and mother don't want you to make. That takes a lot of courage in most cases. How are you going to make that decision? If you love your mother and father and you know they love you, but yet you know you have to make this different decision, that's a painful moment. That's a difficult moment. And you do that, make that decision without even knowing how it's going to turn out. But that decision is the same thing that we talk about all the time with Abraham. It's that ineffable thing we call faith. You have faith in yourself to be able to decide that there's no good proof that I'm going to make a good rabbi. There's not a whit of evidence that I'm going to be successful, but I'm going to do this. There's no rabbis in my family at that time. There were no rabbis in my family. Had no basis to make that decision whatsoever. But I thought that was my future. You all can decide whether it worked out or not. But I think of that often. If you're a parent, I think of that often. And I tell my kids all the time, at some point, I started saying to them, I'm giving you my advice, but now you're at an age where you have to decide whether you accept my advice or whether you do not accept my advice. Because this is really on you now. And I am not going to be offended or reject you if you reject or don't follow my advice. So I think this moment, this portion that we have, is among the most beautiful portions because it speaks to something that virtually every single human being experiences, which is how do you go forward in life loving your parents, respecting your parents, honoring your parents, yet knowing your path is a different path than they want for you. It's hard to do, whether that means leaving Minsk to get on a boat, to go to a land that no one's ever been to, or whether that means taking an occupational path that your parents are opposed to. All of these things our tradition beautifully and lovingly anticipates in this week's portion. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shkoach.
Rabbi Kanner-Wissett, we don't have anybody. Can you believe that nobody wanted to sign up to come give the announcements tonight? From the board. I mean, where is their devotion? Where is their dedication? See, they apparently decided they didn't need to take our advice.
Yeah.
And show up at services.
That's right. However, I was thinking during Ve'ahavta that, we're supposed to think of these things when we're lying down, when we're rising up, when we're on the road. So I'm hoping that the people who are not here are thinking of good things and bringing good luck wherever they go because they're bringing their Judaism with them wherever they are.
Well, I hope that that's the case, and I also think we're in the position of being able to say, well, if by chance something goes askew with the Dodgers tonight, it's because you didn't come to shul.
Okay, but they're praying out there.
They're praying out there, so we'll see what happens. At any rate,
I don't want to entertain that thought.
let's continue our service. Also, we have to give a shout out at this point in the service to our wonderful musicians, David and Randy and MB. Wow. How many texts did you get from them saying, please let us off tonight and watch the Dodgers game? Zero?
Yeah, I expected more.
Okay. These are the best, really the best. Page 586, the Aleinu. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
At this moment, let us recall loved ones whom death has recently taken and those who died at this season in years past. If there is anyone here this evening who is observing the period of the Shiva, the 7-day mourning period, and you wish to remember a loved one, I invite you to rise at your seat and mention the name of your loved one aloud for the Shiva, the 7-day mourning period. If there's anyone with us this evening that's observing the period of the Shloshim, the 30-day mourning period, you wish to remember a loved one, please rise at your seat, mention the name of your loved one aloud. We think of Ronald Stewart Sands, Simon Steve Maurice Soldinger, Jay Stolper, Karamat Zarabianford, Ben Eisner, and Eva Gordon, for whom we are observing the Shloshim. If there's anyone here who is observing the Shana, the year-long period of mourning, if there's anyone here who's observing Yartzeit, which is the anniversary of the death of a loved one, or is anyone here to remember a loved one at all for any reason, please rise at your seat, mention the name of your loved one. We think also of these members of our community whose families have memorialized their loved ones immediately outside the Goor Sanctuary. Joseph Began, Irving Feinstein, Joyce Feinberg, Ray Friedman, Arthur Poppy Goldberg, Richard Gottfried, Ann Greenberg, Morris Crute, Sidney J. Liss, Rose Mallinger, Herman Mintz, Ida Nider, Jerry Rabinowitz, Harry Robbins, Cecile Rosenthal, David Rosenthal, Milton Safenowitz, Sylvia Scott, Amelia Chapin, Bernice Simon, Sylvan Simon, Arthur Spiegel, Daniel Stein, Melvin Wax, Irving Younger. Zechronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing to their loved ones. Rise together, please, and the Kaddish you'll find on page 598. Yit Gedal v'yit Gedash Shemei Rabbah, Ba'alma divrach Yirutei v'yamlich Malchutei, V'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, V'agalau v'zman kariv imru, Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach leolam omei omaya. Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei dekodesha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Daminran v'yama v'imru, Amen. Yehei Shalama Rabba min Shemaya, V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom bin Romav, Hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn comfort the bereaved among us, and let us say together, Amen. Our closing song will be?
We got a little something special.
Oh, I know. I heard you practicing. Let us into your secret.
We're on page 625. Da-da-da-dum, 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 da-da-da-dum. Adon olam asher malach
b'terem kol yitzir nivra, eit nasa b'chefsecha, azay malech shemara.
Da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum,
Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da.
ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה. Da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum,
Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da.
והוא אחד ואין שני להמשילו להכבירה ולי ראשית ולי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה. Da-da-da-dum, 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 da-da-da-dum. והוא אלי וחי גולי וצור חבלי ועת שרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום אקרא. Da-da-da-dum, 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 da-da-da-dum,
Da-da-da-da.
בידו הפקיד רוחי ועת תישן ואהירה ועם רוחי גביעתי אדוני לי ולא אלה אדוררם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לנשא וחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
We should try that to other TV theme songs. I love that.
Yeah, we could do a
Yeah.
TV night. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. How about the
Forum, maybe.
Flintstones? We could do it to the Flintstones.
The Flintstones.
Yeah.
Adon Olam. Right? I think Adon Olam goes to every
single. Absolutely. Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron le'maseh v'reishit כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי באנו ובחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, V'Shabbat kodshecha be'ava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. I don't care if I ever get back. Let me root for the Dodgers. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. You gotta do the key change, like, take me out to the... Only at Dodger Stadium, right?